It is round 44 in the Championship. Here is the state of play at the top and the bottom of the table. You're here to hear about the football. I'm here to hear about Ben HD's hay fever. How are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, up and down. I must admit, I have got the sort of tissues on hand in case of any sort of emergencies during the recording, but I'm getting on all right.
So, Ben HD at donations.com to donate to the Ben HD Hay Fever Fund. Ryan Dilks, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Can we just point out before we started recording, Benjamin Bloom asked Ben HD, is there snot coming out or not? Which was the most repulsive thing I think I've ever heard.
I think it was also the first thing you heard on the call, wasn't it, Ryan?
It absolutely was, yeah. What a greeting.
What a greeting. What a greeting the Premier League will give to Fulham. Congratulations, Fulham. They are promoted. That is one thing. Yes, indeed. That is one thing done and dusted. So what we're going to do, chaps, we'll go through the permutations for the top 6 and the bottom 3. So extreme trigger warning if your team is below 6th. We will not be mentioning them in terms of the permutations. That does not mean we either dislike your team or do not think your team will be promoted. We just got a finite amount of time. Ben, let's get into it and talk about Fulham. So 86, they can't win the title at Bournemouth, but it's the right opponent. If Fulham do beat Bournemouth, one more point to secure the title. So 2 games time we're looking at minimum. And I suspect Mr. Mitrovic will be very motivated to score against Mr. Parker.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be the case. It is quite an interesting one with Fulham now, because I think that prior to that Preston game, we probably saw them ever so slightly take the foot off the pedal, and looking at the matches that they've got for the remainder of the season, they could have quite the say in how the top 6 actually shapes up. They've got, Bournemouth, Forest, Luton and Sheffield United as their last 4 matches, which is absolutely crazy. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do sort of keep that pressure on. They were by far and away the better team on Tuesday against North End. Became a bit of an exhibition match in the second half, that one. But yeah, a few more goals for Mitrovic. But dare I say it, I think there could be a few slips in there for Fulham from now on. Not that it really means anything at this stage for them.
Is the record going, Ryan? So the post-Premier League record, or the Premier League era record, is Guy Whittingham, which is 42. And there are 4 to play, and Mitrovic is scoring a goal a game. It's even I can work out that math. So, but he'll score another 4 on the basis of the rest of the season and beat the record if he stays injury clear. Ryan, is it that simple?
Well, he should beat it based off the stats that you've just said. But as Ben was alluding to just then, they have got 4 really, really tough games, haven't they? So it's quite lucky, really, that they've managed to get promotion actually over the line by this point. But he'll be motivated this weekend. My question is, how motivated will the rest of the team be? Because I'm very interested to see what Marco Silva does in terms of whether he gives other players a chance, because we all know Fulham's squad is absolutely huge. So they can afford to give other players a go. Those players will still be very good. But how motivated will they actually be? Because they were taking the foot off the gas prior to that Preston win in the week. And I hope Fulham don't take the foot off the gas, because, as we keep saying, they've got big games coming up against teams who have still got plenty to play for. Pretty much all of their games, apart from maybe Luton, have something on the line still. So hopefully they don't take the foot off the gas, but I'm not too sure whether they will or not, because they might still be a bit drunk heading into this ball game.
Good segue, Ryan. Let's talk about Bournemouth. So Bournemouth are guaranteed a playoff place. In terms of automatic and securing it, so only Huddersfield, Luton and Forest can catch Bournemouth. Obviously, Forest still have the biggest upside. And as we always reiterate, they have games in hand on Luton and Huddersfield, not on Bournemouth, which is the absolute key. It can't be done this weekend. Huddersfield and Luton could be out of the race if results go Bournemouth's way. But honestly, we'll come on to Huddersfield. They're playing Barnsley at home, so we're not expecting them to drop out of that race this round. The perfect scenario for Bournemouth is if they win and all Huddersfield, Luton, and Forest lose. Forest are playing Peterborough as well, so we've got 2 relegation or bottom 3 teams in here. So probably not going to be the perfect scenario, but I'll give my normal "it's the Championship" caveat. So they could do it on Tuesday, but then they're away at Swansea, and Forest have got Fulham as well. Seems like we're going to be going to at least next weekend, Ryan, doesn't it?
I'll start off by saying I'm so glad you've got all these permutations sorted, because I was writing a piece yesterday and was trying to work it out in my head. I really wish you were around yesterday. But yeah, I personally, I think it's just between Forest and Bournemouth for the top 2. I don't think Huddersfield and Luton are going to catch up. I just don't see that happening. But you'd expect that Forest can close the gap this weekend, because a lot depends on what Fulham do in terms of how much they rotate the squad. But Bournemouth, that was their first win in 4, wasn't it, against Coventry on Easter Monday. So they've been a bit sloppy themselves, whereas Forest are just storming past teams. Having said that, Peterborough have picked up massively. I was looking earlier.
That's true,
they've won more games in their last 6 than they had done in their previous 23, which is a remarkable turnaround. But I do think Forest will be too much for them. So Forest can certainly close the gap this weekend, and I'd be surprised if they don't. A lot depends on what Fulham do, though.
What's your reaction to that, Ben?
It's an interesting one with Bournemouth, because I think that what we've seen from them recently when they've come up against sides in and around the top 6, I think there has been a sort of reluctancy to properly put the knife in, and they have been happy to settle with points at times. You know, that goal destroy against Middlesbrough, they didn't really throw the kitchen sink at that one. Same for Sheffield United away as well. So I just wonder whether Parker will sort of be content with a point against Fulham, and then it's those 2 away matches against Swansea and Blackburn that he's thinking, if we get 6 points from those 2 matches, we've got enough of a cushion there going into that game against Forest. So I think that if they do come out of these next, 3 game weeks with, 7 points, I think Bournemouth are laughing, really.
Yeah, big sale. Let's go on to Huddersfield. We'll stay with you, Ben. So we could be due another round of applause on Friday night, because if Huddersfield win, they are guaranteed a playoff place, which I did a bit. I'm writing the big weekend at the moment, actually. It's not done. But I looked back at round 44 last year, and it's just complete opposite. You've got Barnsley in 6th heading upwards, and you've got Huddersfield, where we've said a lot of the time last season, if it had been 10 games longer, they'd won 3 in 22, which sounds very much like the stat you just gave me about Peterborough as well. That was what Huddersfield were doing at the back end of last season, but absolutely brilliant. In terms of them getting second, I tend to agree with Ryan, Ben. If they win the final 3, they land on 82, which means Bournemouth would need to lose at least 3 of the last 5 and only win 1. You're sort of looking at win 1, draw 1, lose 3. It's not impossible, but still, I suppose the framing of this should be just well done, Huddersfield, shouldn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a likelihood that Huddersfield get, 9 points out of their remaining 3 fixtures, but whether that will be enough for second place, I don't quite think so. I think that both Forest and Bournemouth will probably end up better in that, really. But like we say, up against Barnsley in this one, and then we've got Coventry away, which could be a potential tricky one. They like to be a little bit on and off, don't they? And Bristol City on the last day. So more than likely a top 6 place. But
you're not going to comment on Bristol City, Ben?
I don't know what to say about them at this point.
It was a guaranteed home win, was it? Let's move on, Ryan. So I'll ask you about Luton. So again, they can still mathematically catch Bournemouth, but it's even more unrealistic here. That's the sort of case where Luton can land on 80. Bournemouth would need to not win between now and the end of the season and lose a minimum of 3 games as well. You're looking at 2 draws and 3 defeats to get it. In terms of the playoffs, Luton looked really strong after the last 2 games. So I'm calling it a 5-point gap based on Middlesbrough's game in hand and that extra upside, meaning if Luton win against Blackpool, Millwall don't win at Birmingham, and Borough don't win at Swansea, then they could have it wrapped up this weekend.
They essentially just need to win one more game, don't they, for them to be pretty much secured for the top 6. Which, by the way, would be a magnificent achievement, but that's a discussion for another day. The only thing that puts any doubt in my mind that Luton won't be in the top 6 is because they had this flurry of injuries over the Easter weekend, which have really led to Nathan Jones having to really switch things around. But still, I think I'd be very surprised if they're not in the playoffs coming the end of the season, because they've got Blackpool this weekend. Blackpool, a tough game, but you'd expect Luton to win considering their record at Kenilworth Road in this calendar year alone has been ridiculously good. And then they've got Reading last game of the season as well. Reading will probably be secure by then, you'd have thought. So
6-4.
again, 6-4, there you go. So you'd suspect that would be one of those two games Luton will get 3 points from, and they may even get something from Fulham away as well, depending on what Fulham do for the rest of the season. So Luton, look, I'm 98% sure Luton will be in the playoffs. It's just about actually getting it over the line. Can't see them getting top two, as we were just alluding to with Huddersfield.
No, and brilliant. I'm sure we'll all go back and look at our pre-season predictions, and Luton and Huddersfield particularly, I am going to be so far out, it's not even funny.
I had Luton 7th. Just saying.
Oh, well done. Well done.
Oh,
I'm going to give mine away now. 11th.
Fair enough.
Could have been worse.
We weren't. I think everyone had Luton around mid-table.
Improving.
Yeah, like top half.
Exactly. Right. I want to hear from both of you on Forest, because they are kind of the one remaining potential big story if they can stay within 6 points, 5 points going into that head-to-head game that we've mentioned so many times and made a third. So 2 games in hand on Huddersfield and Luton. 7-point gap. That is such an issue because it's more than 2 games worth, isn't it? If it's 6, that's 2 games worth. As soon as it goes over that becomes an issue. And again, Ben, you mentioned Fulham. We can all ramble on about Fulham being a hard game for Bournemouth. Forest play Fulham on Tuesday. So, it could be, okay, catch up. And then, and what might be a hard game for one might not be a hard game from the other. Both sides also play Swansea as well, Forest and Bournemouth as well. I don't feel I can make a pithy statement, Ben, other than Steve Cooper will just want to get to the head-to-head within 6 points, preferably 5 or 4, won't he?
Yeah, I think that'll be the case, really. I think these next 3 matches for Forest probably decide how their season's going to turn out heading into that Bournemouth game. Like we said, Peterborough no longer the guaranteed 3 points that they probably were a few months ago, and Swansea as well can be a bit of a tricky one, but I'd probably fancy Forest in the majority of the games they have left, really, even going that one away at Fulham with them potentially having wrapped up things by then. I'd be fancying Forest for that one. But I tell you what, if it does go down to the last day, it would be fascinating, wouldn't it? With Forest away at Hull and Bournemouth having a tricky home game against Millwall if they're still in the race for the top 6. A potential slip could happen there. But I think it's sort of the age-old thing where if the season had 2 or 3 more game weeks to run, we could probably, say that, okay, there's a real chance in it for Forest. But for me, I still think Bournemouth have got enough in the bank. And I think with 2 quite winnable away fixtures, I think they probably get this done.
Can I just throw in there? You said if Millwall are still in the race, next 2 games are Birmingham and Peterborough going into final day. So
it should be a good one.
They could well still be in the race. They could really be in the race, couldn't they? Ryan, let's get you on Forest as well.
Yeah, I reckon it's going down to the last day of the season. I really, really do. I think Forest have got, minus Bournemouth and Fulham, they've got 3 games that they should be getting 9 points from pretty comfortably. Swansea have picked up recently. Well, I say they picked up and now they seem to have dropped off again all of a sudden. So, and because Forest are just steaming through teams, I think they should definitely be getting 9 points from those. It's just the big games against Fulham and Bournemouth. As Ben was saying, as long as they've got Bournemouth within reach heading into that game, then they'll be fancying their chances. And they've got to get 3 points from that game without a doubt. So I think it's going down to the wire. The thing is with Bournemouth, they are so inconsistent. The first win in 4 against Coventry. And
that was an XG buster as well, Ryan, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. And they'd failed to score in the 3 games prior to that. So if they fail to get anything against Fulham, and then I can definitely see them. Well, basically, I could easily see them failing to win all of their last 5 games. Swansea's the one where I'm a bit like, I'm not really too sure there. But Blackburn can't score, but they're still defensively quite solid. Bournemouth are just so unpredictable, whereas Forest are just flying. So that's why I think it go down to the last day of the season, and a lot could be riding on that infamous Bournemouth v Forest game.
I hope that's the case. If we get there and it's 7 points and we can all pack up and go home with 2 games to go, it'll be jolly boring, won't it? It won't be boring for Sheffield United, though. They're the team in the place where lots of people want to be, but really no one wants to be, because they're the ones everybody's aiming at. You know, if you get past Sheffield United, you're into 6th. Look, it's way too complicated to make any kind of pithy, oh, they need to do this, they need to do that. All I'll say is they've dropped off the last 3 games, and Millwall have picked up, Ryan, and who else was I going to mention? Middlesbrough with that game in hand and with Chris Wilder, even though they've dropped off as well. Looking at the actual, really simplistically, the red and green on the table, Millwall's the one out of those 4 where you've got Blackburn dropping as well. How do you see Sheffield United going and holding on possibly to that 6th place?
Well, it's really interesting because Millwall are the ones who have got momentum out of those teams who are vying for that last playoff place, aren't they? But Sheffield United have also got 2 very winnable games coming up. They've got Cardiff at home and then QPR away. QPR were awful before the Easter weekend, and then they got 2 decent results. And now I'm not really sure where I stand with them, but Sheffield United should still be aiming for 3 points from that. They're a funny side, Sheffield United, because I thought about February time they were 100% going to be finishing in the playoffs, and that only seemed to get more and more secure up until the last month or so, where they've really dropped off.
Coincide with those injuries, Ryan, as well, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, Sharp in particular, because how Sheffield United are relying so much on 97-year-old Billy Sharp, I don't really know.
we were saying that in 2017.
Yeah, and he's only getting older and they're still relying on him just as much. But apparently he might be back for the Cardiff game. That'll be a massive boost for them.
Good news.
Might, emphasis on might, how I keep emphasizing this point, but how he is so important to this team of all-stars, I'm not really too sure. But they need him back and they need him firing, and then everything might click into place for Sheffield United. But alternatively, he might not be back or it might not click into place. And then that's for Millwall's taking, because they've got 2 very, very winnable games coming up, whereas Sheffield United have got 2 games that they should be winning, but I'm not confident that they will.
What do you think, Ben? The direction of travel is with Millwall, actually, at the moment. And I remember our prognostications a few weeks ago. We're all a bit too far for Millwall, and then I think they got 1 point in 3 games, didn't they? But I might have to change my tune on that, knowing what I know now.
Yeah, it is a tricky one with Sheffield United, because I think they've only scored more than 1 goal in 1 of their last 8 matches now. Obviously, Sharp potentially coming back into the frame could be absolutely huge, but they're relying on keeping clean sheets and keeping things tight at the back, because I don't see them scoring more than 1 goal in a game at the moment.
And Morgan Gibbs-White, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And while they probably should be winning games against Cardiff and QPR, a Cardiff goal from a set piece, QPR, I think still create chances, even though they've not been on a great trajectory in this second half of the season. A draw in these next 2, I think, could be fatal for Sheffield United, because I see Millwall winning their next 2 games, if I'm being honest. And then it's quite fitting, really, that Sheffield United on the last day are up against Fulham when Millwall are up against Bournemouth. So should be a fascinating one with that to play for as well. But I am fearful if they do slip in these next 2, Millwall really could smell the blood.
Is there any way Luton can get 3rd and we can get Millwall Luton in the playoffs? I'm there just to watch from about half a mile away, I think. I'll fly a drone over the top. That will be spicy as hell down at the Kenny, wouldn't it? This is where we can hopefully on the next one start making up our playoff matchups. Down at the bottom, Ryan, it's a lot more... No, I'm with Ben now, aren't I? Ben, it's a lot more simplistic. Let's start with Barnsley. They are bottom, and unless they beat Huddersfield at Huddersfield, they are down on Friday night. Not even a draw will do. Your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, we have seen a great escape with Barnsley before in the Championship, haven't we? But I think, the odds are massively stacked against them here. Their away form's been really shocking all season. And with Huddersfield still in play with the top six and what they have, I think it's as clear cut as Huddersfield win this game, and that's lights out for Barnsley, really.
Lights out for Barnsley, Ryan.
Yeah, I think the relegation battle's pretty much done, unfortunately. It was looking like it was going to be really tasty, wasn't it? But Reading have just found a bit... Well, I wouldn't say bloody Paul Ince, but Reading have just found a bit of form, and that's all they've needed, really. It was all about consistency, wasn't it? And if you find any form of consistency from the end of the season to a month or so ago, then that was it. You'd probably be over the line, and that's pretty much what Reading have done. Barnsley, well, Peterborough were the side who I thought might be able to run it close, but when you consider they've got Forest at home and then Millwall away, that's just damning, isn't it? And I think, considering they need, 7 points?
Yeah, I'll do the permutations for you, Ryan. So, simple one for Posh. They have to better Reading's result this weekend or they're down. And as you mentioned, Reading visit Hull. And even if Hull do Peterborough a favour, they've still got to get at least a point then against Forest, who are obviously
it's not happening.
Very good.
It's not happening. Yeah, that's why I think the relegation battle's over and done with. But yeah, Barnsley, I can't see anything. Despite I thought they were improving, but they've seemingly started to flatline again, and they've got they've got Huddersfield this weekend, and then after that they've got Blackpool and Preston, which are two winnable games. Even West Brom on the last day of the season is not completely out of the question, but I just can't see anything happening, unfortunately.
Are you in agreement there, Ben? Are we going to, Saturday, about 5:05, are we going to know that it's Derby, Peterborough and Barnsley? Well, we'll know about Barnsley by 10 p.m. on Friday night, but will the whole issue just be done with 2 games to go?
I think more than likely at this stage as well. I still think that Reading have it in them to pick up a few more results from now on as well, which will even further cement home what we already know about the bottom 3. But yeah, I remember coming on a couple months ago, I was hopeful that maybe this would sort of run down to the last day when we were looking at the last 10 or so fixtures for both these sides. But I think that for both Barnsley and Peterborough, it's probably just been a case of leaving it too late, really, even with the recent pickups in form.
And that goal to equalise by Reading at Barnsley, we're going to look back and we're going to say, right, from then on, it was done, wasn't it? And Reading have been decent. And if Barnsley had just gone on and won that game, ifs, buts and maybes, the pressure and everything moves in a different direction. But look, when you actually look at Reading, he says, without having a table prepared in front of him, they just don't look like a relegation team. We always say 45 to survive. If you had the 6 points on, we've already got 47 with 3 games to go. It doesn't feel like a relegation team, especially not in this season. And we've all mentioned those players.
You say that, Ben, but I was looking at the lowest points tallies anyone's ever had and stayed up. And I think the lowest ever was Bolton in 17-18, when I think they had 43. And considering Reading are on 41 now, you've got to take into account they've had a points deduction, but it says a lot about how poor the 3 teams down there, minus Derby's points deduction, have been for Reading to stay up with such a low points tally. But having said that, Birmingham could also run it quite close, because I just don't see them winning any games between now and the end of the season. And also, if you look at the table without any context, it could very well look like that Birmingham have just stayed up when actually they've been just drifting towards it come the end of the season. So it's all it's
so confusing, isn't it? Looking at the real world table, which is the one without the points deductions, which tells us how good. Sorry, that's not the real world table is the one with the points deductions. But you know what I'm saying? The actual output on the pitch. I'm just looking at that league up there. Bolton would have survived with 42 that season as well, wouldn't they? There was a 2-point gap. So it's high tides, low tides, and they take teams with them as well, don't they? But yeah, we'll see what the final Reading real. What is Derby's real world total? 52 at the moment,
17th.
which is just not a relegation team on the pitch, but off the pitch. Well, let's just quickly finish on Derby then, Ben. Look, we can go on about a late goal by Luke Amos and Reading coming back 4-4, but a points deduction and their away record has relegated Derby. We know the deal. What now? I would suggest the best case scenario is they do a takeover that doesn't involve them getting a 15-point deduction next season. Wayne Rooney stays, ergo lots of the young players stay. And then the absolute slogfest that League One is, they become yet another big club in League One. That's the best case scenario. How close do you think we'll get to that, Ben?
Yeah, I think that we have to see everything finalised with Chris Kirchner over the next few weeks, of course, and then Derby can properly sort of cement what they want to do heading into next season, hopefully without that point deduction, which will put them on a level playing field. It is interesting because I think that he's quite active on Twitter with speaking about things, and he sort of said, the next thing in place is promotion from League One and things like that. But it does feel like quite a lot of ideals will have to fall into place if Derby are immediately going to be smashing it in League One, because I think that as we've seen this year, there's a lot of competition up at the top end of it.
Gnarly. Ryan, talk to me about some Derby players then. These are all players that if I were a Championship side with any ability to pay salary and some money that I would like to have off Derby. Burn, I think, is decent fullback. Cashin has just come in, as is Ebiowi. Buchanan, there's been bids from Forest already for him. Bird is good, I think, Championship ready. Sibley could be really good. Lawrence is on loads of money and contracts expiring. Knight is already good. Bielik is excellent. Stretton's going to be good. I think Ebosele's already gone to Watford Nazi. But look, there's going to be 3 or 4 sold, isn't there, surely?
Well, this is a bit of a weird situation because I literally have no idea who is going to be at Derby next season. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you one player who's definitely going to be playing for Derby next season. At the moment, there's only 3 players who are actually contracted to Derby. Those are Christian Bielik, Max Bird, and Louis Sibley. 3 very good players to have in League One, by the way. But even if they are, well, first of all, there needs to be a football club, which needs to be sorted out still. But if that is sorted out, I'm still not sure whether Bird or Bielik in particular will still be there. You've got players who have contract extensions, optional contract extensions, which can't be actually extended until we're out of administration. They're Jason Knight, for example. He's one of those players who's another very good player to have in League One. The only players who I can say for sure won't be at the club next season are Tom Lawrence. I just don't see him signing another deal. If he did, that would be amazing. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if he did. And then a few others like Ebosele, for example, who, other things have been taken into account. So who's actually going to be there? Who knows at the moment? Derby could potentially have a very, very good team. They could potentially have a team with some very good Championship players dotted around him, mixed in with some League One players, or they could have a completely different team with none of these players. My instinct is it's probably going to be the latter. Yeah, I think it'll be a similar situation to when Wigan got relegated, where that whole team was just completely wiped out and they were left with a side who were all right at League One level, but it took a while for them to, get used to each other and what have you. And I think that will be the most likely situation. But in a dream world, Derby fans will be hoping that they keep a hold of, in particular, the likes of Aaron Cashin, Michael Bielik, young players who have been fantastic, whereas the likes of Bird, Bielik are probably a little less realistic. And plus, you'll be able to get a fair bit of money for them as well. So a Bielik, Cashin, Sibley, keep hold of these players. Derby will have a very good side for next season, or at least a decent enough side for next season. But as I say, who's actually staying, who's not, who knows? We need to make sure there's a football club first.
And you would think the sales pitch to those players would be from Kirchner. He's got to keep Rooney there and Rossinia. And the sales pitch is, give us a year in League One. We'll sell you at the end of the year, but give us a year in League One. Help the club stabilise, or possibly even better than that, with the acknowledgement.
But the thing is, as well, they'll play in League One next season, won't they?
Every game,
They'll definitely be guaranteed game time. Whereas if a BOA moved to a championship side, I wouldn't be exactly sure if he would. Rooney is staying, according to Kirchner. He said Rooney is definitely going to be at the club next season, which I think is a massive bonus because he's done a fantastic job this season. And he's managed to galvanise this group of players together. And hopefully that momentum will continue into next season. Whether he actually does stay or not, I'm about 80% sure that he will. But if a big job comes along, obviously he's done a fantastic job this season, and clubs may look at that and think, okay, might want to get in on this guy early while he's available. I'm not sure, but Kirchner seems confident enough.
Well, we think Burnley and Watford might be. It always seems to happen with the parachute teams, doesn't it? Well, I mean, go figure. They've just been relegated, so you tend not to be in a good spot then. But whether a parachute team would go, look, this guy's young, he's incredibly famous, he's experienced in the league in very testing situations. But
the thing is, I'll say as well, and I'll stop talking about Derby in a sec. The thing is, what I'll say is as well, Rooney's got enough money, hasn't he? It's not like he is going to be persuaded to go to a Burnley, for example, for more cash. The only way I could see him going to another club is if it's a Premier League side. And whether it would be Everton or Man U, for example. Obviously, that's a big jump from Derby in League One. Yeah. But I can't see him being persuaded because he's Wayne Rooney. He can do what he wants, really, can't he? And just pick whatever club comes his way. And that's why I think he'll stay at Derby next season. But I'm not saying that with complete and utter confidence.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, we will be back on Championship 365 next week. And at that point, Bournemouth and Forest will both have played another 2 games. Potentially, we think the relegation issue might be, what did you say, Ben? Lights out, all done. And we'll probably know a little bit more about the playoffs, but that entire show may be a playoff show, but we'll figure that out every time. Thank you everybody for watching. If you're over on the Football 365 YouTube, thank you for all the support. Good numbers last week. Please hit subscribe and hit like on the video to give us a little boost. Say goodbye, Ryan.
Bye.
Say goodbye, Ben HD, without sneezing.
Cheers for watching, guys.
And goodbye from me.